Welcome to Intelligent Human Leadership, leading yourself and your team. Do you ever find yourself grappling with a lack of confidence in your team? Or battling the relentless waves of concern and fear? Are the pressures to meet client expectations and the burden of missed opportunities weighing you down? On this podcast, you'll discover the strategies and insights that will reignite your team's morale and help you find the harmony and knowledge you seek to propel your business forward. Here, we explore innovative ways to reignite your creative spirit and achieve greatness, empowering you to lead with intelligence, compassion, and resilience. If you're ready to dive deep into your core of leadership challenges and be guided toward success, here's your host, founder of Steward Your Business, David Carr.
So here I am, December 2013, 10 years ago. I'm looking at potentially the end of my marriage at this point. And facing the reality of what I haven't done and how I haven't shown up as a husband. I thought that I was doing all the right things, only to realize my primary mission, my marriage, had been suffering for a long time. And the reality of that was stark, to say the least. The reality that I had been working for years, managing people, running a multi-million-dollar program, being successful in the eyes of the world, had 2 young children, a leader in a company, managing the largest contract they had ever had in their history. I had a ego and a way of understanding who I was based on that success. And I was missing completely this most important part of my life, truly. I've been married in 2005. We got married, my wife and I. It was my second marriage, my wife's first marriage. So I already had a history of challenge there. Thank goodness that she saw what could be in me. And she really was and is still an amazing person in my life who I'm very thankful to have. In fact, we just were walking and looking at Christmas lights last night together with our family. But to the point of, here I am 10 years ago, looking at potentially, divorce. Thankfully, we didn't go down that route, but the reality was I was not showing up as a leader in our marriage. I wasn't showing up. And my first instinct was to blame, justify, defend my way of being. I did not want to crack open and deal with all the emotions and challenges that come with that, to really own it all. Didn't want to own all the fruit of my life, the results of my life. I wanted to own the positive things, the accolades of running a huge program, running with, dozens of people. While I was successful in business, on all accounts, I was not successful in the domain of marriage and relationships, and that specifically. And honestly, I thought I could somehow make it up. I could do enough in the other relationships that would account for that, and it doesn't. And why I come and share this with you in this journey is that, number one, you're not alone. And number two, there's an opportunity to course correct. I've met so many men that are in desperate situations with their wives and the relationships. And for me, I didn't realize how much power and a place of certainty and clarity and momentum that I could receive by tuning in truly to my wife, truly tuning into where she was at, listening to her, and using that to fuel me and take the emotions and take that. My wife is a very powerful woman. She has a great sense of discernment and understanding, and quite honestly wasn't tolerating the man that I was at that time. Thankfully, she saw what we could be, and even probably better than I could at the time. And I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with it healthy. I was an immature man in that regard. Although, I'm my 40s, I just turned 40. The reality was that I didn't know myself well enough to lead myself, and certainly couldn't lead my wife. While I could lead teams to a certain degree and I had success there at a certain level, the power of transparency and honesty was still not there. I could put on a good show. I could put on a good face. And I don't even think I realized it, honestly, at the time. But I've realized as I've leaned into this lifestyle and way of being vulnerable, opening myself up to criticism, opening myself up to true love, meaning people that hit me in the throat, poach me in the throat. I have a great mentor, Garrett White, that I have been a part of, Sam Falsafi, and other brothers and men that I've invited in my life over the course of the last 10 years to literally punch me in the gut in a good way, wake me up, help me to wake me up so that I can actually listen and hear. And so, again, why I started this podcast was the fact that if we don't do this work, our lives are on the line. Our marriages are on the line. Our relationships are on the line with our children. There is a disconnect from the true impact that we can have. Well, we do have impact. Like I said, I was having success. I was running, literally, it was one of the biggest contract in the company at the time. I had this ego. I was running it. I was a leader in the overall team. And I had natural talents and abilities, thankfully, as far as being a connector and talking with folks, but I wasn't relationally grounded. I certainly couldn't access my feelings and emotions in a healthy way to leverage them. They literally broke me down. I couldn't function at times because the emotions were like waves crashing over me. And I just felt like tumbled in if you've ever been in the ocean and a wave crashes over you and you're not prepared and it just tumbles you. I felt tumbled so many times. I was grasping. I grew up in the church. I thought, okay, I know God. There's got to be an answer there. Well, there was, but it wasn't. I didn't have eyes to see or ears to hear, truly. I was very defensive. I was very, justifying in my ways to the point where it didn't enable me to make the change and the pivots that I needed to grow as a man. And it just made it worse between my wife and I because making her the enemy, making her the focus of my immature behavior, my passive aggressive ways, I made it worse. And I'll tell you, men in particular, women are not attracted to that. If you're passive or passive aggressive, they're not attracted to super aggressive guys either. Wasn't the aggressive type. I didn't show up that way, but I didn't know how to show up assertive. I didn't know how to show up in a way of power, clarity. Didn't know how to develop my day truly to be in that place. What I call now my core four, and in my health, my meditation. There's elements I knew, but it was like if you ever had pieces of a puzzle and you can get some of them together, great. But the power comes when you get it all linked up together. And so that is so important, that you track that you look at how you're doing, how you're showing up in that way. And for me, I wasn't doing that. I had, again, elements. I had tools. I had some tools, and I was using some of those things. But to link those together, what I call is the warrior's way. It's linking the productivity stuff, which I was pretty good and managing it based on who I was. I was managing people and programs and logistics and being very resourceful and efficient that way. But when it came up to truly being present, emotionally honest, and being willing to go to the dark areas of my life, truly the pit, I did not want to go to the pit. I did not want to go to the darkness. Now, I was ultimately, I don't say forced, but I chose that path because I realized there was no way I was going to get to the light or to the peak until I faced that. I started to introduce people into my life that started to speak truth in love, but truth that really hurt, honestly. But I finally had ears to listen and ears to hear this and start to take it and internalize it and realize, okay, I got to take account for all the results in my life, all the fruit here, the way that people show up in my life, the way that they interact with me, the way that they speak with me. That all has to do with how I show up. Now, granted, they got to account for themselves, but I am a part of this puzzle. And so for me, coming and sharing with you this morning, this realization that 10 years ago, my marriage was on the brink of divorce, the brink of dissolve. My wife and I were, about as far apart as you could be, emotionally, physically, all of that. And to really see that there was something greater vision that I knew could be. And to see today the place where my wife and I are at, the best place that we've been in our 18 years of marriage, I would say. Although it can definitely be better. But in the best place that we have worked together and worked through so many things. One of the beauties of living, I call the code, where we want to stop lying and telling the truth. Now, lying, I was lying in so many ways, lying directly, but honestly, a lot of lies of omission. And my wife would not tolerate that any bit, which thank God she doesn't. That thank God that I had a woman that was strong enough to call me out my bullshit. She was able to call me out on things that were not right. She didn't know exactly what they were, but in her heart of hearts and her mind, she knew if something was off. Men in particular, I want to encourage you. Your wife is one of your greatest assets in this regard. If you have a strong woman that can speak truth to you, now it may not come off in love, but if you can handle the fire and hold the frame for her, I'm telling you, it is a game changer. At the time, I couldn't hold the frame. At the time, I didn't have the strength or the reps in, and it has taken time and repeated time. And when I use a tool called stacking to get clear on this, stacking my emotions and going through what they are and what's this story that I'm dealing with, how am I making sense of it, and then what is my desired outcome. This is what I include as part of my coaching program, and for those that come in and want to learn these tools in ways so that they can be in a much better place. I didn't have those back then. And honestly, even if I had them back then, I was still processing a lot of who I was in results and understanding the fruit of my life, just even understanding the basic facts of your life. Could you account for those? Truly. And I thought I had a great marriage. I thought I had these things checked off. And oftentimes we as men kind of are conquerors. We, check that, done that. And then we realize, I didn't keep the maintenance up. I didn't keep the intentional focus on dating my wife, pursuing her. I'd lost that and I had focused on other things. And how easy is that for us men in particular, particularly in business, because there's always a new target. There's always something new to conquer. And why I started Steward Your Business was this fact of, okay, we have those. We know those things continue to come up year after year, month after month, week after week. There's new challenges. There's new targets that we're trying to hit. They never end. But sometimes, and many times as men, we have wanted to get married, we got married, we wanted a house or a car and get kids. There's certain things we have checked off, but the reality is we have not made a priority of cultivating a relationship. And I'm guilty of this. Hopefully you aren't, but I was guilty of this, of not pursuing my wife, making goals, making plans very specifically for her, for us, for our marriage, and for our family. Yeah, I did family trips, and there were some things here and there that we did, but it wasn't a week by week, month by month. It wasn't that intentional. It was a little bit more accidental than intentional. And I realized the impact of my influence was completely eroded to the point where if you don't do that, men, and you open that door, you're leaving, like your gas tank and your wife's, down. She's desired. She wants to have that relationship with you. And here you are going off conquering and slaying giants in business, which isn't bad in and of itself. But letting that be your primary focus, I'm telling you, men, you're going to miss the boat. And you're going to wake up and you're going to look up and you're going to realize your wife she may be there still present with you, but she's not there emotionally. She's certainly not there physically with you. And that's a killer. That truly leaves you in a place of a lack of power, lack of certainty. And I don't want you to be in that place. And so I can't, again, solve everything in this podcast, but I want to be real with you. I want to share the rawness that I've gone through, be honest with you, because I don't want you to face that alone. I'm not going to say you can't, you're going to have to face the reality of where you're at. You're going to have to face the raw emotions of where you're at. But you don't have to be stuck and stay there. You don't have to self-destruct. You don't have to burn down the business or all these relationships. I've seen so many men say they choose this woman, they've loved this woman, they've made their commitment to pursue this woman, only to burn it down, to flip it, that she's your enemy, that you're injuring her, you're doing harm to her because you're a little boy. You're a little boy that has lost your toy or lost your sense of control, and now you're going to push back. I'm telling you, man, it's not the way. It is not the way. I'm going to be sharing more and more about relationships and where I'm at in this journey, because I want you to know you can have success and you can turn it around. But the reality is you have to do the work. You have to do the work daily, weekly, monthly. Well, how do you do that? What do you work? That's what where do I start? That's what I do through my coaching program and using the tools that I've developed through a variety of sources that I know that work and that get me centered and get me in the right place and get me moving and taking action. If you feel like you're spinning your wheels, or you feel like, yeah, some things have worked but not worked, I'm not getting to the progress where I want, just reach out. That's why I created this. It's a dialogue. This isn't a one-way conversation. I'm sharing you information today, but I'm giving you the opportunity to reach out to me too. If you're hearing this and it's resonating with you and you're like, damn, my relationship, my wife is not on fire. Our marriage is not on fire. It is not where I want it to be. I'm telling you, men, when you hear this and you apply it, your business will lift. Your body will lift. Your spiritual business, your will lift. I was in a terrible place physically too at that time. Wasn't eating well. I was not. I just had started going to the gym, so I started to pivot, but I was not in a healthy place. Not sleeping well. These are all interconnected, guys. These are all interconnected. And so I started with this business of intelligent human leadership because we want to, and steward your business because we want to improve our business. But the reality is you have to look at these other areas. And if you're not looking at these other areas, you're setting yourself up for failure. This is the way, it's just natural law. It's not going to work. It is not going to work. So the sooner that you can account for where you're at, account for the results in your life, own it all, stop lying to yourself, especially stop lying to your wife, stop lying, particularly lies of omission, what you're not saying. Believe me, your wife will pick this up. And I encourage you to stop. Stop what you're doing. Stop the destructive behaviors. Stop the backbiting. Stop the resentment. I had so much resentment in my heart for my wife at the time. It was mine. Yeah, she had her issues. She had things that she was working through, but it was mine. And she felt it. I'm telling you, that is not an attractant. When you're resentful, when you're bitter, when you are depressed. Now, again, these are realities. You're going to face these things. Okay? The challenge is, what do you do when you face these triggers and these things that come up to you? You can turn it and face it in a healthy way, or you can turn it and use it as a weapon. Truly a weapon, and cut down those around you. And unfortunately, in our human nature, we usually cut down the ones we love the most that are right around us. I don't know why. It's just our human experience is that we hurt those around us, and hurt people. You might have heard that saying before. So when we are cutting down those, it's just making it worse, rather than how do we build a bridge? How do we own our stuff? Because when you start to own it, you own all of it, you actually can now solve your problems. You can actually start to solve these issues. If you're the victim, if you're stuck, you're stuck. There's no way of getting you out of that. But once you realize, oh, you know what? I can actually do something about this. That's where power comes. We can start to climb out of that pit. But the reality is, you have to go through the darkness. You have to go through the pit. There's no skipping out of the valley. Okay, guys? There is no skipping. Now, we can move through it quicker at times. Absolutely. Because we know the tools, we know how to process. But you have to go through that. And you're going to get to, ultimately, I'd like to see you where you're at this peak, in a place where you can look back and you can see, oh my gosh, look at the darkness that I went through. Look at the challenges that I went through, but I came out on the other side. I want you to come out on the other side. I truly want you to come out on the other side. I'm your advocate. I want you to be able to do that. I have the tools and materials that I've used over years, time tested, that I know that work. I just hope you really hear that today, that you're not alone in this, and why I'm coming on here and sharing this story with you. As you listen and you know others, share this with them. Say, you know what? I really heard David speak to this today about marriage, and I was all focusing on the business because I thought that was the thing. If I made it in business, I made enough money, I had enough, in our house or a car or vacations, that would be enough. It's not enough, guys. That's just part of it. And I want to encourage you, be successful there, absolutely. But don't take your eyes off your marriage and your relationship with your wife like I did. Because it takes so much more to get back up. If you ever think about a race, if any of you guys have run in a race, if you can stay with the pack or stay up and hold it consistently, you don't have to be in the front, okay? But if you can stay there, you're more likely to win the race in a good time, in a good setting, in the way you're going. If you push really hard and you fall back, and push really hard and fall back, that's so much energy that it's draining and it's very hard to do. And honestly, it's not recommended. So what I'm encouraging you to do is to do it in all domains. And again, tools I have here, reach out to me. I'm show them to you. I can get you plugged in. That's really secondary. I want you, number one, to hear you're not alone. There's a better way to do this. And you have an advocate in me, David Carr, here with Steward Your Business through the Intelligent Human Leadership podcast. As you lead yourself and understand who you are, you can show up in a very powerful way. You can show up in an assertive way, a way that leads and that is attractive. And that when you stop lying and speaking truth in love, it is attracting. There are some people that can't handle it. I'll give you that. But I'm telling you, your wife is dying for this, to lead in a way that honors her, that brings her in as partner and co-creator with you in this marriage. And together, you guys can be so powerful and amazing when you come together. Think about that. You chose two individuals coming together. You're so much better off in the long term. And so I want to leave you with this thought this morning, this time where I'm here in December. We're middle of December. Your relationship may not be where you want it to be. Your business may be okay, and certainly you can grow there. But I want you to consider this. If it's not where you want it to be, what are you going to do about it? We're going into the end of 2023 while I'm recording this, and in 2024. Are you going to let another month or a few months go by and just kind of look up and say, we're just kind of in the same spot, or worse? Or worse, there's more division. There's more distance between you and your wife. While you can always focus on the business will always be there, really. I mean, there's always something more to go back to. Your relationship with your wife is not static. It's either increasing or decreasing. It does not stay, not set it and forget it, okay? So I want to encourage you today, as you hear me share my journey of nearly being divorced, disconnected, and turning it around. You can do that. This is an invitation for you to reach out to me. It's here through your business, through sharing this Intelligent Human Leadership podcast to others, because I don't want others to be left knowing they're alone. And especially in this time of season, you're listening to this, any holidays, but really, when you're feeling alone, disconnected, this is where we do stupid stuff, guys, in particular. I don't want you doing stupid stuff. I want you to do powerful, impactful, meaningful actions and words that bring life and liberty, if you will, true freedom, finding that in your life. I appreciate you listening today. I look forward to coming back and sharing with you more about this journey. I'll be definitely digging in more to my relationship, my marriage. You'll be hearing about my children, my coworkers, so that you can know, number one, you're not alone, and that there is a way to lead yourself, to know who you truly are, to lead your team. Your ultimate team is your family, your marriage, and those around you. Thank you for listening today. I wish you all the very best as we go into the end of the year, 2023. For those listening, we're going into 2024. I encourage you to connect and don't go it alone. I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much for listening.